Hello friends, let's talk about the Cocodona 250 2025 edition. I got a hurt neck, it's still healing. It's one of the key reasons I had to pull out in Jerome, and some other reasons too, which is kind of scary and exciting. So I hope you watch the video all the way through. So the race starts at Deep Canyon Ranch. So I arrived, that's near Black Canyon City. I arrived Sunday by bus, the Aryavaipa bus, set up my tent, and note to myself, don't do that again, stay in a hotel. It rained most of the night and I didn't get much sleep, so I woke up around 1:30, I think, maybe it was 2 o'clock. Started drinking coffee, just getting ready for the run. The race got started around, it got started exactly 5 a.m. I felt pretty good. I was wearing my USWE vest, which will come into more discussion later. The first section is a tough section. Some people say it's one of the hardest 50Ks there is. It's a lot of climbing, over 10,000 feet, and you basically have about 7 miles till you get to Cottonwood Creek aid station, where then you need to fill up at least 4 liters of water. I thought that first 7 miles was kind of rolling. I think it's part of the Black Canyon Trail. It was very nice, actually. And so when I got to Cottonwood Creek, I actually jogged most of the section. When I got there, I filled up with 4 plus 2, I think about 6.5 liters of water, because you got about 21 miles, over 26 miles of you have to go before you can only get another 1 plus 1 liters of water. So my pack was very heavy. Didn't feel bad. Felt okay. I felt good. I really thought the first section of the race was kind of like the Bandera 100K. Only difference is that elevation. I live at 1,000 feet. This section was at like 3,500 feet, and I think it went up from there. So it made it kind of challenging. But I thought the first section of the race was not too bad at all. Once you got to the first water fill-up station, which is at 10.4, you can add 1 liter of water. And then there was another water station at 24 miles. You could add another liter of water. I did do that. So I pretty much stayed with 5-6 liters of water most of this first section. Then once you got to Lane Mountain, that was a serious climb. It seemed like it went on and on and on. And what really made it challenging is it started raining, cold rain. And we're talking about the Arizona desert. You're gonna see that it rained many times during this race, which I think is very odd for Arizona. Also on Lane Mountain, it's a lot of climbing, but the clearance on the trail, the brush on each side, is not very much. So when it's raining, that brush gets full of water, so you're constantly getting more water on you. Anyways, I pushed pretty hard, light jog all the way through. I felt really good. I got into Crown King aid station. I don't know why the whole time I kept thinking Lion King, but Crown King aid station. I was just very hungry, and I think I didn't eat enough on that section, because what happened was something terrible. In Crown King aid station, you had you could have pulled pork sandwich or this black bean burger. I don't like pulled pork, and I've never tried the bean burger. Note to myself, never try vegetarian food in an ultra. I had the black bean burger with a little bit of barbecue sauce, and I could feel my stomach just swirling around. Something was not right. And I've done over 40 ultras. I've never gotten sick in an ultra. I knew something was not right, and I ended up spending over an hour in Crown King, just wasting time. And finally, I pulled the plug on my stomach. I said, this ain't gonna work. So I went to the back of the Crown King restaurant where the outhouse was, stuck my finger down my throat, and I emptied my whole body. Threw up like I never threw up before. And then I tried to eat some mashed potatoes. I started to get cold, even with my night gear. I had pants. I had Gore wear pants and a nice coat that I used the whole race, which worked well. I put those on, but I still feel a little cold. So I got some mashed potatoes and chips and other things and went inside the Crown King restaurant to try to warm up. Anyways, unfortunately, I wasted probably an hour and a half in Crown King just trying to get my stomach back right, and it never came back right. Eventually, I grabbed all my gear, got checked, and took off to Arista Creek. Coming out of town, Crown King, I got a little bit, I don't know why, seemed to be confused on the roads a little bit. One landowner told me, oh, you need to go that way, stay on the right side of the road. He was real nice. Once I got out of the road section, I started the long downhill. So it's a very long, they say 14-mile downhill to Arista Creek. Well, that's what it says on paper. In reality, it's a bunch of rocks and hard to navigate stuff, so you're not going to be jogging. Anyways, I came up on a guy that had passed me earlier, an older guy. I think he was from Sweden. But anyways, he was on the ground in his emergency blanket. I've never seen anybody use an emergency blanket before. And he said he maybe busted his ankle on one of the rocks. He heard a crack. Anyways, he was waiting for medical to come pick him up. So I asked him if he needed any help. He said he's fine. He's just waiting on the medical team. So I went on. Unfortunately, that whole 14-mile section, I only had tailwind. I couldn't eat anything. I had food on me. I just couldn't eat it. I would almost upchuck it. So that whole 14-mile section, I was at a slow hike, so I wasted a lot of time. That should have been a section that I could have gained a bunch of time, but I didn't. Anyways, good news is I made it to Arista Creek, and they said, hey, have a grilled cheese. I had a grilled cheese, and suddenly I had to run behind their tent and throw up again. So my stomach, I've never seen this before. Anyways, I asked, after I threw up, I sat down and I was drinking some soup, which seemed to go down, and I asked the guy, do you have any Pepto-Bismol or Tums or anything? He goes, we have a bottle of Tums. I was like, cool. So he gave me 4 tablets of Tums, and I think I had some potatoes or something, and then I had peanut medley. You know, it has the peanuts, the M&Ms, and all that. I could hold it down. So I ate that all the way to Camp Kipka, and so by the time I got to Camp Kipka, it was daylight the second day, and I tell you what, that was probably the best aid station food I had the whole race. I think Crown King was the worst, but Camp Kipka was the best. They had breakfast. It was warm inside. I probably had 20 pieces of bacon, eggs. They gave me some pancakes. I just couldn't I couldn't get it down. Just my throat was still messing with me. It was very cold going up to Camp Kipka, and also leaving Camp Kipka. So, but I felt much better. Started cruising down to Camp Wamatok. That was a nice section because it was a lot of, I want to say fire road, but it was flat and downhill. It's starting to get a little windy here. Hope you can hear me. Felt pretty good. Got into Camp Wamatok and had a cheeseburger. That's my favorite aid station food. Stayed there for just a second. Checked on my brother. He was about 7 miles behind, so I was hoping I could run with him, but we just have different paces and stuff. Maybe next year. Got to Whiskey Row. Had a couple pieces of pizza. It was awesome. And then I said, I'm getting out of here. And they go, you're leaving so quick? Yeah, I got to catch up time. I've been screwed the first day. I really lost about 4 hours on the first day, just being sick and not being able to jog. So got out of Whiskey Row, which then you just navigate through town, which seems like forever. Actually, coming into town from Camp Wamatok seems like a lot of city walking as well. But this is where the shit gets wild, okay? So I'm leaving Whiskey Row, going towards Iron King, and I go to the Granite Dells, and there was a lady runner and her pacer, so I followed them because I was really confused about the rocks, because I thought this was out of town and it seemed like in town. Anyways, I thought the rock section was very difficult. I'm just not into rock climbing. I really thought I was going to hurt myself falling in the rocks or something, because some of them some pretty tough climbing. But anyways, got through it. It was getting cold. I put my cold weather gear on again, And then right as you leave the Granite Dells, there's a long trail along a residential area. And then on the right side, it looks like a ranch. Well, I listened to a lot of podcasts before the race. I really thought I knew the course well, but I'm coming from Texas. Then you say Fain Ranch, I'm looking for a ranch. The section on the right looks like a ranch. The section on the left looks like a residential community. So I was really confused. So I should have just paid attention to my GPS on phone. Note to myself, use the GPX file on your watch, not on your phone. Because every time I put my phone away, it's tricky getting it in and out, so I didn't use it as much as I probably should have. Next year, I'm going to use it only on my watch. Other people had good luck with that. So I get a few miles of walking, and I keep seeing the residentials on the side. And I was following some people, but they were too fast. They went way ahead. I say, man, I'm getting lost. I must be in the wrong place. I don't see any Fain Ranch. I don't see any kind of ranch. So I called the race command, text message, and they said, let's find you. They looked me up, and then I sent a message back to them, hey, there's some more runners coming. I'll just follow them. I'm fine. And I was fine. I followed those runners all the way to Iron King, and it was starting to rain again. So in the Iron King aid station, I ate a little bit, just some snacks. I was there 5 minutes at the most. And I said, how do I want to climb, I want to see the Satisfy aid station, and I want to climb the Mount Mingus. How do I get there? And they say, you just go straight, 5.2 miles through those fields. But it's a residential community on the left. I'm just confused again. Before the race, I thought we were going to go out to some ranch, go across 3 fields in a ranch. This is not a ranch. It's land next to a residential community. So my mind was confused. I shouldn't have been thinking too much about it. But it's raining like hell. I get in these fields and my feet are sinking down like 2 inches into the mud. I'm slipping and sliding. It's raining. There are other people that I can follow. I know they were struggling as well. You had to climb a bunch of fence ladders. And at one point, so it's raining. We're making some progress. I was following the group, not looking at my GPS. I wasn't sure if they were just getting around certain things, but they were actually following the course, which was good. Also, I was a bit tired. I've been up 24 hours already, and we went down into this like ditch section. You went down in the ditch. I slid down both sides of the ditch. It was so thick mud that when you put your foot on the ditch trying to go up, it just broke off. I stuck my poles very deep into the mud. But at one point, I had to do this several times. At one point, I just fell down. It was terrible because I was covered in mud. My hiking poles were covered in mud. Even the grips, you couldn't even see the grips. They were covered in mud. The back of my pack slammed into the mud, so I had dripping heavy mud on the bottom of my pack. And so anyways, we progressed. I got out of that ditch somehow. I don't know how I did it. And we finally, going through mud for miles and miles and miles of thick mud, we made it to Satisfy aid station. And this is where it hit me. I was thinking to myself, I'm living in the race. I don't have a car. I don't have a crew. I never use crew and pacers. Not knocking it. I just don't do that. In 40 Ultras, I've never used a crew or pacer. I don't have any way to change my clothes. Luckily, I had a drop bag at Satisfy, and I had an extra pair of shoes that I tied on my pack for the next day. But my winter gear, my pants were covered in mud, my pack was covered in mud, and my hiking poles were completely coated in mud. The handles you couldn't even see the handle. And so I asked one lady at the AC, I said, do you have a water hose that I can wash these things off? She says, no, but we have a bathroom over there. I went into the bathroom, and unfortunately it's like a low pressure bathroom thing. And I was able to clean it off, but I completely screwed up their bathroom, mud everywhere. And about that time, it started raining heavy again. So I had my poles clean, ate something a little bit, and the lady at the aid station goes, man, you really need to lay down. Because I was a little bit out of it, because I was a little bit pissed because I covered in mud. And luckily I wasn't in my shorts. If my shorts had been covered in mud, because I was wearing shorts under my Gore pants. If that happened, that would have really been bad. Because I only had an extra shirt and shoes at that aid station. I didn't have an extra shorts. So I laid down. I slept. It was about 11 o'clock at night when I laid down. No, maybe a little bit later than that. I only slept like an hour and a half. And I got up. The lady was kind of checking me out. I think she was concerned that maybe I shouldn't go climb Mingus because it was raining and I was a little bit tired. But I told her I felt good. Ate some more. And then 2 other guys were going out to Mingus. I think it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. 2 other guys were going out to Mingus. It was raining. We had to do it. We had to go. We're gonna get caught with the cutoffs if we don't. I mean, the weather was never good. So I took off with them, and they were very good at navigating. But we had to go through all these muddy fields, and it seemed like miles and miles of mud just to get to Mingus. You know, that was a little bit frustrating. I know it's not my race. I can't make a decision. But when you looked out to the left, there's a road. There's a road on the other side of the fence. Why not let us go down the road instead of going through all this heavy mud all the way to Mingus? Anyways, if I was in control, I would let people go down the road. But anyways, just complaining a little bit. I like the race. I'll be back next year. Anyways, made it to Mingus, and there's some great trails right before Mingus. Sun was up right before I got to Mingus, and cruising some trails. And then finally climbed Mingus. Mingus is a serious climb. They don't jack around. The other mountains, you go up a little bit, then you're on flat section for a while, and you go up a little bit. Not Mingus. Mingus, you go straight up. It's more like an East Coast mountain. And then once you see the gravel road at the top of the mountain, then you know you've made it to the top of Mingus, because you still have to go a ways on the gravel road, but you know that you're getting close to done. I knew that from a podcast. Well, I got into Mingus, ate something, and then I made another big mistake. I wanted to see if they had some medicine for my neck. It was just killing me. I think it's caused by my pack and also looking down for roughly almost 2 days because of the mud. I'm always staring down. I didn't want to fall, but my neck pain was intense. I had tried adjusting my pack, all my straps, all the way tight, all the way loose, so many things. I think in hindsight, I just didn't train enough with my pack, my heavy pack. And it was heavy because I was carrying 3 liters of water all the time, plus all my gear. I don't have any crew to give me the gear, take the gear away, give it back when it's cold. I don't do that. Carry all my gear. In the past, I've won ruck races with 20-pound plates and 48-hour races. I didn't think I'd have any problems with the pack. But anyways, it just screwed up my neck. It was a lot of pain. I was always having to look down. I have to try to look up to make the pain go away. If I looked down, it was very sore. So on top of Mingus, I asked them if they had any medicine, rubbing medicine you could put in it. They did, and they said, well, we can give you a massage. The lady was real nice, gave me a massage. It was one of the most painful massages I ever had. I know it was not her fault, but my neck and shoulders were so screwed up from the heavy pack. After that was done, I ate something. Then I decided to get off of Mingus. Took off. It's 14 miles downhill on paper. It was all mud and rocks all the way down. I think it's 17 miles. 17 miles off of Mingus. One of the worst sections that I've seen in the race. And I'll only have seen half of the race when it's all done. But going through the mud and stuff, adjusting this and that. At one point, I even tried to tie my hat to my pack with a piece of fish line that I had, because my idea was that I wanted the hat, if it was tied to my pack, it would keep my neck up. It wouldn't be any pain, but that broke off real fast, didn't work. So it was a waste of time. Started, hours and hours getting off of Mingus, headed towards Jerome. Then probably around 5 miles before I got to Jerome, I started seeing birds on the trail, big crows, and I would get up very close to them and they wouldn't fly away. It wasn't a bird. I was hallucinating these birds. It was basically big rocks, and on the side of the rocks they either been fire burned because there was a fire there before, or it was a shadow, but the shadow was the shape of a crow. My mind was really starting to jack with me. And then I remember I got about a mile further, and as you're weaving in and out of these mountains, I looked up on the mountain, and there's a gravel road going around the mountain, like a residential community building a new addition. And then as I got closer, there was like a bus stop, and this father and daughter were sitting at the bus stop. And I'm thinking to myself, hallelujah, I'm getting close to civilization. I must be getting close to Jerome. I got closer to the mountain, there was nothing there. I hallucinated it all. And that happened many more mountains. I kept seeing roads, and they're like, after a while, I was like, this is fucking bullshit. There's no road there. I can see a road, but it's not there. When I get close, it'll go away. Eventually, I saw a red road, and it was really a road. So I had met another couple that I caught up to, and we started to get on this red road, and they said, yeah, this red gravel road, 3.5 miles will be to the aid station. So we have to go on this gravel road for 3.5 miles. So they took off. They were a little bit faster than me. I'm not kidding. 100 yards on this gravel road, it starts pouring rain, cold rain and small hail. So I am quickly. It wasn't a slow start to rain. It was immediate. So I took off my pack, and I'm doing it as fast as I can. I'm just getting drenched by cold rain, and I put my coat on, get ready, and then I start my way down this gravel road, and I just get soaked. I think for the next few miles, until you really see a real town, which is Jerome, I was getting rained on with small ice. So I was cold. I wasn't too bad because I was moving. Then this is where shit gets really wild. I get into Jerome. I remember I crossed the bridge, and then there's a Cocodona 250 sticker on the sidewalk. I remember Jamil said, stay on the sidewalks in Jerome, because what the mayor wanted. So I see the sticker, I turn left, I go down the little small hill, and then there's another sticker saying you need to turn left and a flag in the tree. But there's nowhere to go. Maybe there is, but I'm hallucinating and I can't figure this shit out. I look at my GPS, and it says that the aid station is on kind of a dogleg road to the north. But when I look, after I make the left, there's just another short road going back up to where I was. I should have gone straight into the abyss, and that was the highway that would take me to the aid station. But I was confused, so I turn around and walk down this big hill, which is the wrong direction. And at that time, I see this big family leaving the restaurant or whatever, and I said, have y'all seen any runners? Do you know where the aid station is in Jerome? And they were very helpful. They like trying to help me, even ask some people, and they couldn't figure it out. We saw some runners going down the hill. In hindsight, I don't think they did, because when they said that messed me up even further, because I kept thinking that going down the hill was the right thing. I go back up the hill where I started and go down the sidewalk, and I was asking restaurants. One bar owner came out and said, hey, come in for some beers, you'll be fine, you know. I said, do y'all know where the aid station is in Jerome? They go, we have no idea. And then so I go back down the hill, and at this point, man, I was even shedding some tears. I was tired. I was getting cold because I wasn't moving very fast, and I was lost. I was lost in Jerome. This is the weirdest town, beautiful little town, but all the roads curve and they don't connect. So I went down the hill and went around, which on the GPS showed me going towards the aid station, but it didn't connect to the road that the aid station was on. The only way to do it was to follow the Cocodona sticker when you first get into town and go into that abyss, which goes to the highway. I learned that after they picked me up. So I wasted about 30 minutes. And at that point, my brother was actually in Jerome, and the aid station director said, your brother's a half mile off course. You have any way of getting in touch with him? Well, of course, I kept my phone on airplane mode to save the battery. You know, if you keep it on wireless, it's going to run the battery down. But at that same time, I turned on the wireless, and my brother called me before I could even send a text to Race Command. And he says, you're off course. Race Command's trying to get a hold of you. And they passed me into Race Command. And I said, I cannot find how to get to the aid station. I can see the aid station, but all these roads don't connect. It's so confusing in Jerome. And they said, yeah, it's a lot of curvy roads. I said, my neck is hurting so bad, I'm going to have to drop in Jerome. Can you pick me up? And they sent somebody to pick me up. And then That's how I ended my race. But a lot of good learnings. In a way, I think Cocodona is a lot like the Barkley. You need to have experienced people either pace you or tell you a lot of things that you're not going to learn in podcasts, because in the big podcast, it's all these pros, talking about how many, Airbnbs they have and how many pacers and crews and all that shit. They don't tell you the hard stuff you need to know if you're by yourself. Well, I just did. And I'm going to be more prepared for next year. But a lot of good learnings. If you have any questions, you can, of course, send me a message. But it was emotional towards the end, but a great learning. And I'm going to be ready for next year. Bye for now.